The first time Ranger Samuel Rodriguez saw Scout, the lion, he was just a trembling ball of golden fur abandoned and near death. It had been 15 years ago, during a period that tested the very fabric of Sam's spirit. Just 2 years had passed since he lost his wife, Maria, to cancer, and the void she left was still an open wound. The Wildlife Reserve, once a place of serenity, had become his sanctuary, a last tether to a world that felt hell-bent on breaking him. When the park's lead veterinarian brought in the orphan lion cub found near murdered pride, something inside Sam shifted. The cub's mother, along with her entire family, had been brutally slain by poachers, and even then, the cub's eyes held an extraordinary intelligence, a flicker of resilience that echoed Sam's own pain. The veterinarian didn't expect the cub to survive, but Sam saw something special, a spark that resonated with his own wounded soul. Night after night, he bottle-fed the cub, sharing his thoughts and fears. He spoke of Maria, of loss, of the fragile balance of life in the wilderness. Scout, he had named the lion cub after days of contemplating, listened intently, his golden eyes absorbing every word, every emotion spilling from Sam's heart. As the months passed, the bond between Ranger and lion deepened into a connection that transcended the boundaries of species, becoming something profound and unexplainable. On a scorching summer afternoon, when the wilderness seemed to hold its breath, Ethan appeared. He came like a whisper through the dense undergrowth, a small boy covered in scratches, his eyes reflecting a terror no child should ever know. A mystery shrouded in innocence. The circumstances of his arrival were as tangled as the thorns of the brambles from which he emerged. Ethan was the son of two renowned environmental scientists, Dr. Elena Rodriguez and Dr. James Carter, who had ventured into the most restricted areas of the reserve and uncovered sinister activities, evidence of underground genetic experiments, threatening not just the reserve's balance, but the ecosystem itself. On the day he found himself alone in the wilderness, his parents had known they were being pursued. Their final act of love was to hide Ethan, giving him coordinates to safety, instructions for survival, which he had memorized before being torn from their arms. Scout's reaction to Ethan was instantaneous and inexplicable. The massive lion approached the boy, not as a predator, but as a vigilant protector. His movements were calculated, his eyes scanning the surroundings with a fierce intelligence. Sam watched in awe as Scout positioned himself around Ethan, creating a living shield against potential threats, the lion's body language exuding a protective instinct that seemed to pulse with understanding of the child's trauma. Days turned into weeks, and gradually, the mystery of Ethan's past began to unravel. Cryptic notes surfaced in his tattered backpack, fragments of conversations that hinted at a conspiracy far beyond the reserve's boundaries. Scout became an anchor for Ethan, a bridge to healing. The boy, once mute from the trauma of loss, began to find his voice, first speaking to Scout and then to Sam. His drawings exploded onto paper, filled with strange symbols and creatures, hinting at the secret experiments his parents had uncovered. But beyond the bond forged in hardship, a dark undercurrent persisted. Questions whispered through the trees like the wind, rumors of strange lights, of figures lurking in the shadows, uninvited guests in their peaceful sanctuary. Sam felt the weight of urgency gathering like a storm cloud, knowing that they had to remain vigilant against an unseen predator, one that was far more dangerous than anything that roamed the wild. One fateful night, Sam was jolted from the quiet solitude of his cabin by a rustling sound. Heart racing, he stepped outside to find Scout standing at the edge of the tree line, tense and alert. The lion's golden eyes were fixed on a distant point, a low growl rumbling in his throat. Sam followed the lion's gaze and saw shadows moving among the trees, figures that did not belong. "Ethan, stay inside." Sam's voice was steady, but his heart pounded with fear. He sensed the danger that loomed just beyond the safety of their home. Scout moved closer to him, offering his presence as a silent promise of protection. Just then, Ethan stepped out of the cabin door, clutching his teddy bear tightly, sensing the tension in the air. "Sam," he cried, his voice trembling. "What's happening?" "Stay back," Sam shouted, his instincts flaring, but Ethan, emboldened by his bond with Scout, stepped forward. He stood small but resolute, his young courage shining through. "Scout will protect us," Ethan declared, his voice steady but filled with a child's innocence. The lion turned, a flicker of understanding passing between them, a protector, and the one he protected. For a moment, time stood still, and the intruders hesitated, taken aback by the sight of the massive lion and the determined ranger standing their ground. But this moment of hesitation was fleeting. The figures emerged from the shadows, clad in sleek black gear, carrying ominous equipment that glinted under the moonlight, a clear threat. They were not just poachers. They were agents of the corporation, sent to reclaim what they believed was theirs, the knowledge Ethan's parents had uncovered. Scout let out a roar that thundered through the night, a primal call that sent chills racing down Sam's spine. The lion charged forward, a magnificent force of nature ready to protect his newfound family. Sam grabbed a flashlight, illuminating their path, the beam catching startled faces as the intruders regained their composure. "Get back," Sam pleaded, his voice firm, yet wavering with the weight of the moment. But as the intruders approached, Sam's mind raced with what to do next. They had to protect Ethan at all costs. In an instant of bravery, Ethan took a step forward, letting go of his teddy bear. "We're not afraid of you," he shouted, the courage of a child who had already faced unimaginable terror surfacing within him. The intruders froze, and Scout, sensing the intensity of the moment, stood at the ready. The darkness that loomed around them suddenly felt alive, charged with an energy that demanded action. Sam felt a sense of unity swell within him, man, child, and lion against the encroaching shadows. It was a standstill, a moment suspended in an uneasy silence, where everyone knew that things would never be the same. Then, as the night air vibrated with tension, the decision was made, not just by Sam or Scout, but by Ethan's unwavering spirit. As the figures began to retreat, Sam knew they wouldn't remain dormant for long. Their resolve had been shaken, but they would return, and next time, it might not be so easily deterred. A fierce bond had formed among them, unbreakable in its essence, tempered in the fires of adversity. Together, they stood united, Ethan, Scout, and Sam, guardians of the wilderness that had woven their destinies together. Their journey was far from over. It had just begun, and against the impending storm, they would fight, not just for their sanctuary, but for the very soul of the wilderness they cherished. As the last of the shadows faded into the darkness, Ranger Sam Rodriguez stood tall, heart pounding in rhythm with the adrenaline that coursed through him. Scout, a magnificent lion and steadfast protector, now paced restlessly, his golden eyes glinting like molten gold, scanning for any lingering threats. Meanwhile, Ethan remained steadfast at Sam's side, the young boy's small frame trembling, but his spirit ablaze with a courage that seemed to transcend his tender age. "Ethan, are you okay?" Sam asked, kneeling down to meet the boy's gaze. The moonlight illuminated Ethan's face, reflecting the mix of excitement and terror that flooded his eyes. "I'm fine," Ethan declared, though the tremor in his voice betrayed him. Scout scared them. He was so brave. The lion paused, his ears twitching at the praise, then bumped his massive head against Ethan, a gesture of affection that seemed to bolster the boy's confidence. Sam couldn't help but smile, warmed by the bond between the two. In that moment, it was clear that Scout was more than just a lion. He was a friend, a guardian, a bridge between innocence and healing. "Scout will always protect you, Ethan," Sam replied, pride swelling within him for the bond they had all forged. "But we need to be smart now. We have to find a way to keep you both safe from those men." As the night deepened and the stars twinkled above, the weight of uncertainty settled over them like a shroud. Sam kicked into survival mode, his mind racing with ideas. They needed evidence, the proof that could unravel the conspiracy Ethan's parents had uncovered. But how could they gather this information without putting themselves in danger? "Let's head back inside," Sam suggested, steering Ethan toward the cabin. "We need to think. Scout can stay outside and keep watch for any more intruders." He didn't want to frighten Ethan further, but the recall of those dark figures remained frescoed in his mind. Once inside, they huddled around the flickering light of a single lamp. Ethan's backpack lay open on the table, the contents a poignant reminder of the confusion and fear that had brought him to their sanctuary. Sam rummaged through it, pulling out crumpled papers and loose drawings. The boy had clearly poured his heartbreak into these sketches. They were not just sporadic lines, but stories that needed to be told. "Look at this one," Ethan said, his voice regaining steadiness as he pointed at a drawing, a crude but recognizable depiction of a hidden laboratory surrounded by tall trees, cables snaking out of the ground like roots. I saw it in the woods just beyond the ridge. I think they might still be working there. Sam's heart raced. You saw a lab? Here in the reserve? How far is it from our camp? Ethan's frown deepened with concentration. Not far. Just past the stream where the big rocks are. I don't go there alone. It's scary. But my parents always said it was a bad place. Compelled by a mix of urgency and fear, Sam knew they had to investigate the boy's claims. With every revelation Ethan shared, the danger surrounding them became more palpable. They weren't just protectors of wildlife. They were now unwilling players in a dangerous game that threatened the legacy of everything they held dear. All right, we need a plan, Sam said, clenching his jaw with determination. Ethan, you've been so brave, and I need you to keep being that way. If we're going to confront this situation, we need to gather evidence of what's happening out there. We'll work together. Scout and I will keep you safe. Ethan's enthusiasm flickered in his eyes. Can I come with you? I want to help. Sam's heart swelled again, but doubt crept into his mind. It might be dangerous, buddy. If we encounter those men again, I don't want you to get hurt. I'm not afraid of them. Scout is with me. Ethan insisted, a determination that belied his youth. Sam noticed a steely resolve in his gaze, a drive that revealed an unexpected strength, one that mirrored the resilience Scout had shown. With a heavy sigh, Sam considered the lopsided fight they were up against. Okay, but we stick close. You stay with Scout at all times. If anything goes wrong, you run back to safety. Understood? Ethan nodded vigorously. I won't leave Scout. As they made their preparations, Sam felt a chilling wind sweep through the cabin, a reminder of the tense energy permeating their reality. He gathered their supplies, flashlights, a camera to document evidence, and a sturdy backpack to carry provisions. Each item felt like a weapon against the ignorance they were about to confront. When the sun began to rise, casting its warm light across the landscape, Sam, Ethan, and Scout set out for the hidden laboratory. The three of them moved through the familiar territory of the reserve, but each rustle of leaves and snap of twigs echoed with an unfamiliar weight, a reminder of a lurking danger. It was no longer a simple hike through the wild. It had taken on the aura of a mission, a fight for survival, for truth. As they approached the stream, the sounds of the wild enveloped them. Birds chirped, and the gentle current bubbled over rocks. Yet, within that beauty lay an underlying tension. Sam scanned the surroundings with caution as they arrived at the base of the ridge, the division between the known and the unknown. Is it over there? Sam asked, gesturing toward the thick brush at the edge. Ethan nodded, tightening his grip on Scout's fur. Just beyond the rocks. Sam paused, the weight of anticipation heavy in the air. Remember what I said, Ethan. Stay close, be quiet, and don't take any risks. With that, they made their way forward, moving between shadows and sunlight, hearts racing with each step. Ethan led the way, his voice a mere whisper as he navigated through the thicket. Scout moved beside him, a looming presence of protection, ready to strike if needed. Suddenly, as they approached a clearing, they caught sight of their destination. Hidden from view, half concealed by overgrown vines and foliage, was a makeshift structure, a sinister testament to the illicit activities that had pulled Ethan's family into danger. Exhausted machines and broken glass littered the ground around it. Just as they began to survey the area, a distant sound caught Sam by surprise. Voices, faint but unmistakable. His instincts kicked in, and he motioned for Ethan and Scout to remain silent. They huddled against a large boulder, their hearts thudding in sync, straining to hear. As the sounds grew clearer, a sense of dread settled in. Who were these people? What did they know? Then, Sam heard a voice that sent a chill down his spine, rich with authority. We need those samples, and we need to move fast. If we don't obtain the data designed by those scientists, everything could fall apart. They are the key to our success. What about the boy? Another voice questioned, edged with desperation. He can't be allowed to speak to anyone. A shudder moved through Sam's body. They were here for Ethan. They knew he was vital to their plans. It was a moment that clarified everything. They were in grave danger. Ethan, Sam whispered urgently, glancing down at the boy, whose face had gone pale. "We need to leave. Now." But even as they turned to retreat, a sudden noise erupted from behind them, branches cracking and leaves rustling. Scout let out a threatening growl, and out of the corner of his eye, Sam saw a figure step forth from the shadows, wielding a flashlight, a sight that sent his heart racing. It was time for action. With adrenaline coursing through him, Sam knew they had to run. But the path behind them was just as treacherous, and they could be trapped at any moment. "We have to protect Ethan," Sam shouted, locking eyes with Scout. "You've got to get him back to safety." With a fist nod, Scout shifted into protective mode, instinctively nudging Ethan forward. The reality of their situation gripped Sam with urgency. Every second counted. Without hesitation, Ethan raced ahead, trusting not just in the lion, but in the unbreakable bond they'd forged through adversity. They could uncover the truth, but first, they had to escape the encroaching darkness, to confront both the malevolent forces at play and discover what lay ahead. The journey had only just begun, and the stakes were higher than ever. The wilderness was shifting around them, alive with secrets yet to be uncovered, as the bond between Sam, Ethan, and Scout forged deeper within the wilderness of their hearts. Sam's breath came in quick bursts as he struggled to keep pace with Ethan and Scout, the shadows of danger closing in behind them. "Run, Ethan. Stay close to Scout," he called out, each word laced with urgency. Time was slipping like sand through his fingers, and the urgency to escape the encroaching figures was palpable in the air. Ethan remained steadfast, trusting in Scout, who instinctively took the lead. The magnificent lion moved gracefully yet powerfully, maneuvering through the undergrowth with a precision that seemed almost choreographed. Each step brought them closer to safety, or so Sam hoped. As they burst through the thicket and back onto the well-trodden path leading deeper into the reserve, Sam quickly scanned their surroundings. The lush greenery felt like a deceptive cloak of safety, yet he knew the reality lurking just outside their bubble. The poachers were not far behind, and the threat they posed was very real. Just then, Sam glanced over his shoulder, catching a glimpse of the figures emerging from the trees. They wore dark uniforms, faces shadowed by caps, and they moved with a determined speed that sent a fresh wave of adrenaline coursing through Sam's veins. They were not simply lost, they were here with intent. "Keep going. We need to reach the cabin," Sam yelled, urging Ethan on. He could feel the boy's small hands gripping his arm in fear, but also determination. This was not just a game of hide and seek anymore. It was a fight for their very existence. As they raced through the familiar paths of the reserve, the world around Sam quickly faded into a blur of greens and browns. He could feel his heart hammering against his ribcage, each beat feeding a pulse of desperation. Treading the ground where he had once walked in harmony with nature now felt like moving through a minefield, with danger lurking behind every tree and shadow. "Right here," Ethan exclaimed, pointing to the small wooden cabin that loomed ahead. Hope surged in Sam's chest as they neared the sanctuary. "We'll be safe inside." But just as they reached the door, the unmistakable sound of branches snapping echoed behind them like a countdown to catastrophe. The poachers were closing in. They wouldn't let this slip away so easily. "Ethan, inside. Now," Sam commanded as he pushed open the door. In that moment, the world outside felt both infinitely close and utterly far away, like a veil separating them from the storm brewing just beyond the threshold. Ethan dashed inside with Scout following closely, the lion's body guarding the entrance like a fortress. Sam slammed the door behind them, breathing heavily as he leaned against it for a moment, adrenaline still firing his senses. Thoughts raced through his mind. They needed a plan, something that would divert the threat lingering outside. "Do you have your drawings?" Sam asked, trying to steady his voice. He took a moment to gather his thoughts, knowing the boy had an innate ability to think outside the box. "Yes. They're in my backpack," Ethan replied, his voice a mixture of both excitement and urgency. He rummaged for the pack containing his sketches filled with hints of their discoveries, a testament to their journey thus far. "Good. We can use them to show the evidence we've gathered." Sam paused, thinking deeply. "But if they find us before we can present the truth, this all ends here. We need a distraction." Ethan's eyes lit up, a spark of youthful ingenuity igniting within him. "What if we use the cabin's old horn? I saw it the last time we were here. It's really loud. We can make it sound like there's something, or someone, else in the woods and draw them away. Sam's heart lifted at the boy's brilliance, recognizing the opportunity this presented. That's a great idea. Where is it? Behind the shelf. Ethan sprinted toward the far corner of the cabin, pulling free dusty stacks of old camping gear and crumpled tops that had long been forgotten. While Ethan retrieved the horn, Sam paced carefully near the door, listening intently for any movement outside. Scout remained vigilant, his gaze ever watchful, Buddy poised as if prepared to leap into action. Within moments, Ethan had triumphantly brandished the horn, a relic of past adventures, gleaming dully under the cabin's sparse light. Now what? He asked, excitement bubbling beneath the surface, but laced with the fear of the uncertainty that loomed. Okay. We need to create an opportunity, Sam explained, taking the horn from Ethan's small hands, feeling the cool metal against his palm. When I blow this, they'll likely come running to investigate. That gives us a chance to slip out the back, if you're ready for it. Ethan nodded, adrenaline pumping through his veins. I'm ready. All right, Sam said, positioning himself near the window to get a better look outside. He caught sight of the poachers moving methodically through the brush, continuing their relentless pursuit. They were close, too close for comfort. With one deep breath, Sam raised the horn to his lips. On 3, he whispered, stealing a glance at Ethan, who was busy clutching Scout's fur, his wide eyes fixed on Sam's every move. 1, 2, 3. Sam blew the horn with all his might, a loud, resonating blare that pierced through the stillness of the morning air. The sound echoed unnaturally, bouncing off the canopy of trees and sending a ripple of noise through the reserve. Outside, the poachers froze momentarily, confusion flashing across their faces. It was working. Uncertainty had nestled itself into their ranks. Heart racing, Sam exchanged a glance with Ethan, who now had a look of fierce determination. The distraction had begun to take shape. Now, Sam commanded, his voice low but urgent. It was time to move. As they slipped out through the back, Sam's heart raced with a thrill of possibility. The cabin loomed behind them, now only a memory of safety slipping away. They dashed through the underbrush, with Scout leading the way, ensuring that Ethan was protected. The sounds of the horn still echoed behind them, drawing the attention of the poachers away as they followed the noise. The trio weaved expertly through the trees, navigating threads of sunlight and shadow, propelled by the instinctive urgency born from survival. In the distance, as they moved deeper into the reserve, Sam glimpsed the stream that fed the larger river, a natural barrier that might give them the edge they needed. If we can reach the river, we can snag some cover among the boulders, Sam instructed. That might give us a moment to breathe. Ahead of them, the sound of rushing water grew louder, a symphony of nature that felt like a promise of safety. They pressed on, urgency fueling their flight. Scout remained vigilant, always a step ahead, intently watching for any sign of danger. When they reached the riverbank, Sam could finally breathe a moment of relief. We need to keep moving but stay quiet, he warned, glancing over his shoulder to ensure they weren't being followed. Where do we go now? Ethan asked, eyes scanning the riverbanks and the rocky outcrops that jutted out into the swirling current. There. By those boulders, we can take cover, Sam pointed, gesturing to a cluster of large stones that formed a natural shelter. They moved quickly, taking refuge behind the protective wall of rock. Breathing heavily, they crouched down, Sam keeping his eyes on the tree line where they had encountered the poachers, while Ethan brushed dirt from his clothes, the fear slowly ebbing away. The three of them settled into a tense silence, time moving as though it had been suspended, every sound amplified. And then, in the quiet, Sam's thoughts turned to the path ahead, the truth that needed revealing. The sketches Ethan had made held the essence of their fight. They would expose the darkness that threatened both the reserve and Ethan himself. We've got to come up with a plan, Sam said, breaking the silence as Ethan picked up rocks to absent-mindedly toss into the water. About those men? Ethan questioned, his expression serious. Do we have to go back? Not yet. We need to find allies, people who will listen and help us, Sam reasoned, the conviction settling firmly in his chest. The discovery your parents made is too important to hide. We must make sure it's safe. Ethan nodded, slowly processing Sam's words. We have to tell them about the bad stuff they were doing so animals can stay safe. Exactly, Sam affirmed, pride swelling in his chest. We're going to make sure this place stays wild and beautiful. For you, for Scout, for all the creatures here. As they sat beneath the boulders, a new sense of purpose emerged from within their band, an intertwined fate bound by resilience, heart, and an undying commitment to the wilderness they all called home. They would navigate the complexities ahead together, ready to face whatever evils threatened their bond and the sanctuary that housed their hopes. Moments passed, wrapped in determination, and then, with the sun beginning to dip toward the horizon, Sam realized that they had emerged from the shadows of fear into a more profound quest. This wasn't just about survival. This was about standing for what was right, about protecting the wilderness and each other. And as he looked at Ethan, whose face reflected both bravery and vulnerability, Sam pledged, the fight against the darkness had only just begun. They would rise together, heralding the call for protection, their story etched into the very fabric of the wild they cherished. The sun dipped lower in the sky, casting a golden hue over the landscape, and with it came a sense of resolve that settled firmly in Sam's heart. They were no longer just fugitives, they were champions of a cause that stretched beyond their immediate danger. The mission now was clear. They had to gather evidence, seek allies, and bring the truth about the poachers to the forefront. Ethan's face lit up with newfound courage, a stark contrast to the fear that had once clouded his eyes. "What do we do next?" he asked, determination punctuating each word. Sam took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the responsibility resting upon his shoulders. "First, we need to find a way to communicate our findings, to rally support. If we can reach the locals or put together a team of conservationists, we can make a stand against those men." "But how?" Ethan's brow furrowed in thought, his youthful innocence giving way to urgency. "Now that they know we're here, they might be looking for us." "We'll have to be smart and strategic," Sam replied, looking toward the distant treetops bathed in the last light of day. "We'll travel by night, away from their sight, and we'll find a way to let the people in the town know what's happening. You can show them your drawings. They'll understand the urgency of this situation." Ethan nodded, clearly feeling the weight of the moment. "And Scout can help protect us, right?" "Absolutely," Sam asserted with a smile at the noble lion, who sat watchful and proud, his golden mane reflecting the twilight. "With Scout by our side, we'll be safe." Gathering their thoughts, Sam took a moment to strategize their next steps. They had to cover a considerable distance to reach the nearest town, and while the cover of darkness would serve them well, they needed to remain alert and stealthy. "Let's take a rest for a moment before we set out," Sam suggested, glancing around their stony shelter. "We'll gather our strength. We'll also review what we know so far." As they rested, Sam pulled out the sketches Ethan had created, his hands trembling with a mix of admiration and grief. Each piece captured not only the visual elements of the laboratory, but the emotions tied to the bond of family and the chaos thrust upon them. "This is really good work, Ethan," Sam said, studying the details. "Your parents were onto something big. If we can piece this together with evidence of their operations, we might spark enough interest to get help." "I wish I could have done something to help them," Ethan murmured, his voice trembling slightly. "But now I can help the animals." "And that's exactly what we're going to do," Sam replied stoutly. "The spirits of your parents have led us here, and we will honor their legacy." When they finally gathered their energy, they made their way along the riverbank, moving with a cautious grace that blended seamlessly with the night. The moonlight glinted off the water, offering a serene but haunting illumination as they moved forward. "Do you think they'll believe us?" Ethan asked, tension threading through his voice as they navigated the shadows. "They have to," Sam replied, determination threading through his tone. "What we've witnessed is too critical to ignore. We'll make sure our voices are heard." Hours passed, and the night deepened like a shroud around them. Stealthily, they approached a small town on the outskirts of the reserve, its lights twinkling like scattered stars against the inky blackness. It felt surreal. Townspeople went about their lives unaware of the shadows lurking just beyond their safety. "Okay, here's the plan," Sam whispered, glancing around to ensure the coast was clear. We'll find a local community center or town hall. We can share your drawings with people who care about the wildlife and the reserve." Ethan nodded, brimming with adrenaline and purpose. "And Scout will help me talk to them." With clarity of purpose guiding them, they crept closer to a modest building that seemed to hum with warmth and life. A flickering light beckoned them, whispers of conversation spilling out into the embrace of the night. Carefully, they approached the front entrance, their hearts pounding in tandem. Sam drew in a deep breath, summoning all his courage. "Remember, stick by my side. When we go inside, we're going to explain our story, everything. Trust that you have what it takes." Ethan nodded, a determined glimmer blossoming in his eyes. Together, they pushed open the door, the hinges creaking softly as they stepped inside. The interior buzzed with energy, a gathering of townsfolk engaged in lively discussions, laughter and camaraderie filling the air. But as Sam and Ethan entered, heads turned, conversations paused, and curiosity rippled through the room. "Who are they?" someone asked, eyes narrowing suspiciously at the sight of Scout, whose majestic form seemed to dwarf the surroundings. "We have something urgent to share." Sam stepped forward, projecting his voice. "We need your help. There are poachers in the wilderness, and we have evidence that could stop them." The crowd, puzzled initially, began to listen as Sam continued, laying out the gravity of their situation. He explained Ethan's discoveries, their escape, and the threat to the reserve. Eyes widened. Whispers of disbelief soon turned into fervent discussions, people rallying around the unexpected newcomers with a sense of urgency. "Look!" Ethan shouted, showcasing the sketches he'd brought with him. "This is where the lab is. They are hurting the animals and taking everything from the forest." Gasps echoed through the crowd as they examined the drawings, disbelief shifting to concern. "We have to do something about this right now," someone exclaimed. "We can't let those poachers destroy our wildlife." The energy in the room shifted. It felt alive with possibility and purpose. A network of concerned citizens began to form, a coalition of protectors willing to unite behind a cause larger than themselves. Durable bonds forged through urgency were sealed that evening, and Sam felt a sense of hope swell in his chest as he looked at Ethan, whose face gleamed with pride. "What's our next step?" A woman with determined eyes stood forward, her voice firm. "We need to contact the local wildlife authorities." "Let's divide into groups," another man suggested. "We can create a plan of action, patrols, investigations, and if necessary, legal action. We need to document everything." And just like that, within the heart of the community center, a movement began to unfold, fueled by stories of courage, resilience, and hope. Sam, Ethan, and Scout had ignited a fire that would blaze forth into the night, illuminating the darkness with their truth. As plans formed and actions were discussed, Sam felt a swell of pride in his chest. They were no longer alone. They had become part of something monumental. They stood shoulder to shoulder with allies, not just as protectors of the wilderness, but as a united front against the injustice that threatened their world. And amidst the chaos, as hopeful murmurs filled the room, Sam caught Ethan's gaze, a radiant smile blooming across the boy's face. For every challenge they had faced, every moment of fear and uncertainty, they had transformed into something powerful, a force driven by love for the wilderness and the companions they held dear. The path ahead loomed vast and treacherous, but together, they would harness the strength of unity and the raw energy of their shared purpose. The fight for the wild had evolved, and Sam knew they would not falter. As the night deepened, filled with the beauty of collective hope, he realized that their journey, one filled with trials, threats, and awe-inspiring allies, was only just beginning. And together, they would ensure that the melody of the wilderness would be safeguarded for generations to come.